So we are joined by Vala Afshar, who's the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce. He's the author of The Pursuit of Social Business Excellence and the co-host of Disrupt TV. And also I'm hearing he's very, avid on Twitter. And so I'm interested to see what he has to say about his Twitter game. So Vala, thank you so much for joining us. I'll have you take it away.
All right, Nick, thank you very much. If I knew there was a chatter competition where food was given away, I would have actively participated
You're more than
sooner.
welcome to join.
You're welcome to join.
We'd love to have you.
Well, I'm so happy. I'm grateful to be here this evening. I'm dialing in from Boston, so it's 6 o'clock Boston time, and I didn't want to bore you on a Sunday evening with slides. And if I'm fortunate enough to get invited back, I have plenty of slides to show you. But I wanted to talk about my career path to becoming the first evangelist at Salesforce. And it was not something I thought I would find myself pursuing when I was in school, certainly. I am an immigrant. I'm a refugee immigrant. So my family abruptly moved to the US because there was war and civil unrest in my birth country. So, when you're an immigrant and you come to the States or any country, it's important to, belong to a community and find ways to add value to society. And so, I was shy. I say this affectionately. I was going to say I was a nerd. I'm still a nerd. I was an introvert. I didn't play the sports. I didn't speak the language. Food was different, culture was different. And so at 10 years old, when I came, it was really a shock to my system. So you go to middle school, junior high, high school, and fortunately I was good in math. I was decent in math. And I remember my father telling me, hey, look at this Time magazine article. Folks that study engineering make a decent living. In fact, electrical engineers make the most salary out of undergrad school. So you should consider double E, electrical engineering. That's it. That was like a 10-minute conversation. So I decided to go to grad school. And again, my family, both my parents worked 2 jobs, 7 days a week. So I couldn't afford to go to a fancy school. So I live in Massachusetts. So I went to a state school, UMass, and it was a great school, amazing school. And, graduated undergrad. And then I had a professor that convinced me to go to grad school right after. So I studied electrical engineering undergrad and grad, thinking my career is going to be behind the laptop, or at that time, probably a desktop, and I'm going to be writing code, and that's my career. And I was happy, again, introvert, nerd, I was in my happy place. So I joined a company as a software developer, and I worked my way through engineering really quickly. So it turns out that I started to learn in grad school. I was, I made a mistake of thinking memorizing is learning, and that got me through undergrad. In fact, straight A undergrad. But it was really until I had to solve unsolvable problems, because I earned a research grant, and it was the largest grant awarded to UMass at the time, to work with a bunch of doctors from Hanscom Air Force Base to build an image of electron storms in the ionosphere, the 5th layer of the atmosphere. So I was surrounded by PhDs writing advanced code for a military. And there were no answers. So it wasn't like memorize the right answer. I had to come up with theories, experiments, get data and that supports my thesis, and go through this learning process. And to be honest with you, when I reflect back on, being a straight A high school, straight A undergrad, I have to be honest to say it was until grad school where I really learned how to learn. And to do that, you need strong work ethics. And again, I would walk in a room, and by far I was the least intelligent person in the room. They were all PhDs, written books, written white papers. And this is where the imposter syndrome, I guess, that's where the plant was seated, I guess. But in any event, really ended up developing strong work ethics. So my first life lesson was,
I think Vala froze up a little bit on us. I was trying to figure out if that was my screen or his. So
Same.
I did the same thing. I'm like, oh
Here.
no.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
I will, Nick, I'll Slack him on the side and just let him know he's frozen and we'll try to get back in.
Excellent. Sounds good.
It happens. Remember we were talking about this early on, you guys, at the beginning of the meeting, how no matter what you do with technology, there's always one little hiccup every single time.
Oh, absolutely. Can avoid that.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
We're back. Thank
Okay,
you.
sorry. In any event, so my career started off as an engineer, and I, rose through, several promotions, and I ended up becoming vice president of engineering. In 2003, the CEO of the company said, "You need to bring the discipline in engineering into service and support." So I was asked to investigate how we can deliver a better service experience, and I realized we didn't even have a CRM. By the way, I didn't even know what a CRM was. So myself and a handful of people chose this young up-and-coming company, this is in 2003, in San Francisco, to become our CRM provider. Now, at that time, Salesforce was only 4 years old. There were only like 100 people in the company. So imagine picking a company not knowing it was going to be one of the most successful software enterprise companies in the world. And through working with Salesforce, I ended up being promoted to Chief Customer Officer, which meant I ran services function. And this was like a $300 million revenue stream for our company. We were about a $500 million company at the time, about 2,000 employees. And I had no business running services. So that's another life lesson. When you get out and you work, or it could be school, it could be work, it could be, you just mentioned at the beginning of the call, internship. It could be if you're an intern. When you consistently deliver on your promises, and you build a reputation of being reliable and capable, there are times in your career where people are going to give you an opportunity to do things, but you have absolutely no business. You have no experience, you have no knowledge, but for whatever reason, your boss or someone above you appreciates your rate of learning more so than your experience. So as a hiring manager, by the way, my advice to managers is always appreciate rate of learning and good judgment as much as experience, and maybe in some instances even more. So, so because I trusted my boss, I would take on these assignments where really I had no experience with and prior knowledge. But again, I worked hard. I was a quick study. I relied on building a great team. And that led me to running engineering, running services, and I actually became an accidental CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. But before I tell you how I became an accidental Chief Marketing Officer, I have to tell you the story of really how my career and life changed about 10 years ago. And you're joking when you said Twitter game. Twitter changed my life. Twitter changed my career. I wouldn't be the first evangelist at Salesforce if it wasn't for Twitter. So lesson one is don't disqualify yourself doing something new, especially if it's something that's unsolved based on prior experience. It's scary. You'll have butterflies in your stomach, but it's the fastest way for you to grow, because it's through intentional struggle that I believe you grow and you reach your full potential. If any of you watching your athletes, it's pressure is a privilege. Having the butterfly before the game or during the game, right now we were talking about the Masters. I mean, that's unbelievable pressure, but these are elite athletes or elite business professionals or elite students. You recognize that it's through intentional struggle that you get to achieve excellence. So it's 10 years ago, and I go to a conference that Salesforce has every year called Dreamforce. And I'm sitting in the seat in the audience, and Mark Benioff, now this is as a customer now, this is 10 years ago. I joined Salesforce 5 years ago as an employee. And Mark Benioff introduces Chatter. So you guys just talked about Chatter. He introduces Chatter and he says, companies need to become social. Universities need to become social. Business leaders need to become social, because it shows that you're generous. It shows that you're accessible. It shows that you're willing to learn and you're willing to teach. So we can humanize business by becoming a social business. Now, as he's saying this, I've got a cold sweat thinking, my goodness, if you 10 years ago Googled Vala Afshar, you would find nothing. Actually, you'd probably find my graduate thesis, three-dimensional ionospheric tomography, whatever that means, which, by the way, paid for my school. So those weird words actually was 2 years of my life free, thanks to again, Air Force. So I realized that I wasn't speaking. I wasn't active on any social network. I wasn't writing. I was just managing a business. And I had that silo mentality, maybe because I was an immigrant, maybe because my parents or teachers. Silo by definition is consume resources like knowledge. I went to undergrad, resource could be get a fancy title. I was chief customer officer, get a budget, get people working in your team. So manpower. So, and then protect those resources and extract as much value from those resources. So, and this is, I'm like 40 years old and you can't find anything. I had no digital footprint. So I come back from the conference and I make a promise that I'm going to use Chatter. And I'm actually going to use the power of pulling interest in my work, not just pushing information. I was the boss, so I would email people and they would open it up and read. I suppose they felt obligated to. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try to earn their interest. So I remember sending an email saying, this is my last email talking about future roadmaps, customer meeting minutes, our vision for our department. If you want to learn about how I'm thinking about the business, you can follow me on Chatter. And I, uploaded my picture and my bio. And because I was an introvert, I never had the courage to be social outside of my company. I suppose being a CXO, an executive in the company, I felt enough courage to share internally. So a year and a half goes by. So this is now March of 2011. And I get a notification from Twitter, welcome to Twitter. And I'm surprised because I didn't sign up for Twitter. My colleague who was running IT, the chief information officer, his name is Dan Petlon, walks into my office. He actually ran to my office with his laptop open and says, hey, don't get mad. I signed you up for Twitter. But let me tell you why. He pulls up a dashboard for Chatter adoption in our company. And we had about 2,000 employees. And about 1,400 employees are following me on Chatter. He said, you're the #1 most followed person on Chatter. With all these TED Talks you share and Fast Company and Harvard Business Review and all these like blogs and videos. And, I love sports. I would share sports lessons. By the way, Rex Chapman and I are on Twitter just about daily. So, he's an awesome follow. And I am sure all of you know who Rex is. So he says, the problem with Chatter at that time is it never left the walls of my company. Our customers don't see your Chatter posts, our partners, our analysts. But Twitter, everybody sees, a public social network. He said, it's only 140 characters, so you don't even have to think. It's short sound bites. By the way, bad advice. Brevity is the soul of wisdom. The shorter it is, the harder it is to capture what you want to say in an interesting way. Thankfully, it's not 280 characters. But everything he said was right. So another life lesson, if you have good intentions, maybe you just go with it and then ask for forgiveness later. What he was telling me was good sound advice. So I said, I'm going to try it for 30 days. At that time, I thought Twitter was like for, again, athletes and movie stars and, rock singers. I just never thought business people used it. But sure enough, when I started configuring, I realized, wow, all my customers have accounts on Twitter. All the magazines I read, all the books I read, the authors are on Twitter, all the venture capital folks. Everyone that I admired, who I thought were, really changing the world, for the most part, were active on social. So I ended up writing an article from a guy named Tom Peters, who had written the book In Search of Excellence, one of the most famous management business books of all time. And I commented about it on Twitter, and Tom Peters responded to me. And that's when I had an aha moment. Where, I'm from Boston, so I'm rooting for Ray Bork and Larry Bird and, Brady. I'm still rooting for Brady, even though he left. So, but my heroes, the people I really look up to and read ferociously about, are business leaders. And Tom Peters, he's written 18 books, have sold 50 million copies. So I had an aha moment that I can't believe I'm going back and forth with Tom Peters. So I fell in love with the platform. And so that was another lesson for me. The ability to unlearn, because I had to unlearn my introvert habits and become active in a public forum, and relearn. I had to learn new muscles like writing. I was an engineer. I didn't pay enough attention to my writing courses. So for me, writing is like a root canal experience. Now, having said that, I've written about 150 articles in the last 12 months. So I don't know if anyone has written as much as I have at Salesforce. And I write for ZDNet. It's a global publication. So, even though I'm a poor writer, I went from a crappy writer to a poor writer after writing about 800 articles. I read enough to know I'm not a good writer or even an average writer. But my social network is generous enough where when I write, people share my writing. So I have to unlearn and relearn new skills and to change myself. That is a superpower. Ask yourself, the 30 of you watching right now, what's a skill you've learned that you only learned in the last year or two? How have you changed your habits? And I'm telling you, I call it a superpower because 90% of people that have open heart surgery, so this is a life and death surgery, do not change their habits. They have the same sleeping patterns, the same diet, the same exercise. Only 1 out of 10 people that go through a life-altering experience, open heart surgery, change their habits. So changing habits or unlearning is super difficult. For me to have this conversation with you guys without slides, I'm not even sure what I'm going to say, but I'm telling you, 10 years ago, this would never happen. I would just turn down the opportunity to connect with amazing people so I can connect with you and learn. So the chatter moment and the reverence I had for Mark Benioff as a business leader, someone who I trusted, giving me advice, and also having a beginner's mindset. Hold on to your ideas lightly. Hold on to your core values tightly. Honesty, empathy, generosity, equality, trust. But as far as your ideas, I think a beginner's mindset is one that's free of prejudice. You're hungry, you're curious. Because the tighter you hold on to your ideas, the less likely to want to change. And I'm telling you, change is critically important. When I was going to school or working for the first 20 years in my career, never thought I would have evangelist in my title, a storyteller. But I tell you, let's go back 15 years. If we were having this conversation, well, we wouldn't be having this video conference 15 years ago. Technology wasn't there. But there were no social media managers. There were no mobile app developers. There were no drone operators. There were no Uber drivers. There were no cloud computing architects. I can riff on about 100 titles that are six-figure salaries right now that didn't exist 15 years ago. In fact, my 10-year-old son is in middle school. 8 out of 10 middle school children will have jobs and titles that don't exist yet. So think about it, students watching. You on average are going to have about 13, 14 jobs after you graduate. Many of those jobs are going to be probably titles that don't exist yet. So having that beginner's mindset, being adaptable, staying lifelong student, being willing to unlearn and change has to be a muscle that you develop. Now, 10 years ago, you Googled my name, nothing would pop up, zero. Again, maybe my thesis in grad school because I won a few awards as a graduate student. So there were probably a couple of references in the newspaper. But other than that, zero. Well, today my Twitter account alone is referenced 5 million times a day. Last year in 2020, I produced about 2 billion impressions on Twitter. The podcast you reference, we get about 45,000 viewers every week watching the show. My book did really well. I'm working on a second book. And that book about Tom Peters, behind me, Excellence Now, that's his last book. He asked me to write the foreword for the book. Which is kind of silly cool. So the first 4 pages of his book, and it's his last book, his 19th book, I wrote the foreword. A guy I met by chance on Twitter who's my hero, business hero. So I did all of this after the age 40. First on Twitter at 41, my blogging began after the book. So the book was when I was 43, blogging 44, podcast 44. I received a US patent on Chatter. So I invented a technology where you can chat to machines like data center switches and routers and wireless access points, and the machines would chat back to you. And in 2018, I received a US patent. By the way, Mark Benioff, who's the founder of Salesforce, was the first endorsement of my book in the back cover. Again, all of this because I sat in the audience and listened to someone talk about the power of being social. Now, and this is how I became an accidental marketeer, because when the CMO of our company left, our CEO hired a company to help us find a chief marketing officer. And when they did their due diligence, they said, well, the guy that's running services is writing blogs, has a podcast, he has a book. He's got about 40,000 followers at the time. Right now, I have, I think, 549,000 followers. He should be your CMO. So again, I had no business running marketing, but I had a CEO that believed in me. So he offered the job. And even though I really felt embarrassed to run marketing for a public company that at the time had about $700 million in revenue, I took the job. And there's another life lesson when you start your career. A mentor is great. You want to earn a mentor. You want someone who coaches you and teaches you. But a sponsor is even more important. A sponsor is someone that's higher above you in the org, and they put their social capital on the line to advance your career. The reason why, because they support you. They're an ally. I am a sponsor and a mentor for a number of folks at Salesforce. I find joy in being a sponsor because I help them grow their careers. I'm not just teaching them about what type of questions they should ask and how to develop critical thinking. I'm actually putting my social capital on the line to advance their career. So make sure you earn a sponsor. And that just means be trustworthy, be reliable, be accountable, have high integrity and high benevolence. Make sure you're motivated with the right things. So when someone shows you, when someone smart shows you or tells you something, whether it was the CIO creating my Twitter account or my CEO inviting me to take on a job where I didn't have experience, if you trust them and you believe that they have high integrity and high intelligence, go for it. Aim high, stretch higher. And the last thing I'll say about Twitter, and then I'll open it up to questions. I believe the traditional resume is dead. That also includes your updated LinkedIn profile. So in 2013, I found when I was hiring people, I would look at their paper resume for a few minutes, and then I would spend hours searching them on the web. This is 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And I would find a lot about certain candidates based on their digital footprint, what I could find on the public web. And it got to a point where I really ignored the resume, and I would just go to the web. So I was looking for a vice president to bring into my company, and I decided I'm no longer going to use a resume to hire my next candidate. So I went on Twitter, and I created a hashtag social CV. That was the hashtag. And I said, I'm going to hire somebody in marketing. The base salary is $160,000, about 30% bonus, so over $200,000 salary and bonus, and stock options. So this is probably $400,000 package. And I said, I'm not accepting resumes. You have 2 weeks to apply using this hashtag social CV. We had social studios with Salesforce, so I could capture all of the profiles and quickly gather everything that a candidate had on the web, including comments on a blog, or if there were any community, anything that was publicly available on the web, I had access to. We ended up having 500 people apply. It made national news, CNN, ABC, Fox, every news outlet picked it up because it was the first enterprise in the US to hire an executive with Twitter only. I didn't mean to make it a campaign, or it wasn't a stunt. I firmly believe that your digital footprint, or let me be specific, your personal brand is your digital footprint plus your digital exhaust. Digital exhaust is those unintended consequences of things that you leave behind. So those of you watching, students especially, Google yourself and ask this one question: would I hire me? What's the first photo that shows up? What's the first video? What's the language you're using? Are you using hashtag fail? What's the sentiment and tone that you're leaving behind? Companies like Salesforce or any advanced company using advanced software to recruit talent, they're going to assess your culture, your tone, your sentiment, your character, your trustworthiness with algorithms instantly. So I ended up hiring somebody from Toronto. He was amazing. He was active on community. He was a blogger. He was a speaker. And from that time on, I hired about 40 some odd people, and I never used a resume again. Now, Salesforce reaches out to me seeking if I'm interested in joining, of course, my dream job, my dream company. So we're going back and forth with an executive at the time was president of products, Alex Dion. And an executive recruiter now is talking to me to negotiate a salary. And she tells me, Vala, we need your resume. Well, I didn't have a resume. I didn't believe in resumes. So I have a butterfly in my stomach going, oh my God, they're not going to hire me because I don't have a resume. But there's no way I'm going to write one because I'm not a hypocrite. For 2 years, I've been hiring without a resume. So even though the conversation lasted about 10 seconds, it felt like a year. So I'm like stuttering, going, I don't have a resume. And I'm like, oh my God, my dream job's going to go away. And she said, no problem. We can find everything we need to find about you, I'm sure, online. I'm like, do you need references? No, we're all set. 1 million people last year applied to work at Salesforce. We've been consistently named one of the best places to work in the world. We're the fastest growing software tech company in the world. When I joined the company, we were doing $5 billion in revenue. We had about 16,000. In 5 years, we're now projecting $25 billion in revenue, and we're about 60,000 in employees just in the last 5 years. And by the way, we have about 1,500 interns. So if you're an intern, you want to work at Salesforce, like this is where you want to be. So to end with this is going to sound braggadocious, and I don't mean to say it. And by the way, you don't chase money, you chase purpose and joy and happiness. If you think about, or you have doubts about whether being an evangelist or a storyteller is good and rewarding, Salesforce made me a multimillionaire. So it was Steve Jobs who said the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. Advice to my younger self would be, learn to write well, learn to publicly speak, learn and appreciate the power of storytelling, and know that networking is about giving. The reason why I was hesitant as an introvert with someone who fights imposter syndrome is I really didn't realize that when you network and you do it well, it's about giving. You can't get to 500 some odd thousand followers, and I only follow 300 accounts. So I have to really earn every follower because I'm not following everyone back. And there's a reason for that, but I don't want to turn this into a Twitter masterclass. But if you're ever interested in the Twitter masterclass, I'll raise my hand because I've made a ton of mistakes, but I've learned a ton on how to effectively use social media. But that's a whole other, probably easily an hour-long conversation. Please write, speak, volunteer. Every day you're learning something. Take that few minutes and share what you learn. Share uplifting stories. Right now, we're all struggling, all of us. I haven't left my house in 13 months. There's mental health, physical health. What the world needs is people to inspire. And the fact that you're on a Sunday evening, listening to a boring guy from Boston talk about his career tells me you're stretching and you're in the 1%. Because 99% of people are probably watching the Masters at a barbecue or doing something much cooler than listening to this nerd tell you about his career. So I have confidence that the 31 people watching now are much more interesting, much more capable than I was. And it took me until my 40s to figure out the beauty of giving and teaching. So I'm going to stop now because I'm not sure if you find any of this interesting. Sorry, I don't have slides. And I'll open it up to any questions that you have. And I hope that we stay connected after the fact. Remember, Google yourself and ask, would I hire me? It's your next job is not going to be because of the bunch of words you put on a couple of static pages of paper or your LinkedIn profile. Throughout your career, your personal brand is going to be your digital footprint and your digital exhaust. And it doesn't mean you're not the best qualified candidate. It just means that somebody else may beat you to the interview because they have an online presence that employers can find. Again, it's not a disparaging remark in terms of how smart and how talented you are. I just want you to play in a fair game. And the game right now is digital. And it's going to be even more so than ever before as we move forward. I'll stop talking now and open it up to questions.
Vala, I'll just say, while people are thinking of some of their questions for you, I mean, what were you speaking for? Almost 25, 30 minutes has been some of the most inspirational words that I've heard in a really long time. So I think the big takeaway here is lots and lots of things to reflect on from this, whether that's be what you decide to go into in the next 6 months, a year after graduation. But some of the things that I think Salesforce is pretty big on in terms of staying true to your values. And like you said, Vala, not chasing the money, but chasing your passion and what you truly believe in. But I'm sure there was a ton of questions for you. So I want to open it up for the UK folks for any questions, or you can type it in the chat too.
If you don't follow Rex Chapman, please do. He's awesome. He's a great alumni and a great. He has a good game on social, as good as the 14 years he played in the NBA and Kentucky.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So
Sure.
when you first got started on Twitter,
Yeah.
I know that was very new to you, and you were trying to build your personal brand and figure out the right content in order to gain a following. What kind of stuff were you putting on there? It was stuff that did you start out doing the storytelling on Twitter? Or were you just posting random business related, facts or stories or content from other businesses? How did that?
Great question. I had no game, so I had no expertise.
No game, yeah.
And I didn't like to write, and I didn't like to network. Again, an introvert. So if you had if there was a party, I'm the guy in the corner, probably eating chips and just watching people enjoying. And I'd love to have a conversation, but I wasn't the guy walking in and starting a conversation. I was a quiet, person. So first I had to get comfortable with sharing my ideas, and I didn't think anybody would find me interesting. Why? Why would they find me interesting? But the life lesson was, if you're interested and you share, people find you interesting. So I was reading all the time. I was reading blogs, reading books, watching TED Talks, and I would share some of that with the people that worked in my group. So it wasn't that I didn't have access to interesting content. It just stayed with me. The knowledge never flew in and out of me. Again, that silo mentality. I would capture and hold on to the knowledge instead of have it flow in and out of me. The PowerPoint I was going to share with the team was about design thinking based on flow. I think in order for you to be have a successful career, you need to think about the power of flow. And I had about 40 slides I was going to share with you guys, but I thought, you know what, this is heavy business, not heavy business, but I need to set the stage to explain, for example, how power of social media can change your mindset in terms of the beauty of having knowledge go in and out of you so others can benefit. So the best way to learn is to teach. So over time, I realized my litmus test in terms of what to share was, is it interesting and accurate? You want to establish trust when you do anything that's publicly available to all. So when you do a podcast, or when you speak at an event, or when you write, as long as you're speaking to an audience, you want to be trustworthy and you want to be somewhat interesting. So I had to make sure that the content I shared was honest content. I love the word benevolence. Benevolence means what motivates your actions. I wasn't trying to build a brand. I wasn't trying to become influential. I brag about 5 million people looking at my Twitter account daily, but to be honest with you, it's about giving without expecting a get. And most of us are not wired like that. I wasn't wired like that when I was your age. It's very rare to find young individuals, even old, to be honest with you, like myself, that have developed the muscle of giving without expecting a get. Most of us are wired for reciprocity. I'm going to help you. I expect you to help me. I did a favor for you. Do a favor for me. It's very rare you meet, and these are exceptional people, that they just give. So if don't expect people to follow you. Nobody owes you anything. You graduate with straight A's from awesome University of Kentucky. You've got references, your professors and parents and family loves you. That doesn't guarantee you anything. So you have to, first of all, fight against sense of entitlement, because when you're initially on social, it's like being in the middle of desert. Like no one follows you. You haven't earned their trust. You haven't shared anything interesting. So it takes time. It's not like, I have kids. So before dinner, we say, wash our hands for dinner. They go wash their hands, hygiene issue, problem solved, we're ready. Developing a digital presence that's meaningful, that can earn you a fantastic career at a company like Salesforce, that's not hygiene, that's health. So if you're going up the stairs and you're out of breath, there's no light switch to fix that. You have to get plenty of sleep, you have to get multiple exercise per week, and you have to watch your caloric intake, your diet. And a combination of sleep, diet, and exercise over time, and a month or two later, you go up the stairs and you're no longer out of breath. Developing a strong digital presence requires discipline and grit. Again, any athletes watching, Larry Bird, who played for the Boston Celtics, he used to shoot 300 free throws before every game. He ended his career, I think, 90% free throw shooter, one of the best free throw shooters of all time. Yet, the best guy in the NBA shot 300 free throws every game, before every game. Why does he need to do that? Because that's how he became the best free throw shooter in the world. So if you want to develop a social presence, and I encourage you to do it, don't wait until you're in your 40s to do it. Magic happens in your career. Magic happens. And so as long as you read something interesting, when you have these Sunday community sessions, you're learning something. I mean, if you got speakers, I'm not sure you learn anything in my 25 minutes, but prior speakers, how many of you guys took notes when prior folks spoke at this event, and you read the notes and said, here are the 5 things I learned, and I'm going to just go on LinkedIn forum and I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it on Facebook. I'm going to share it on Twitter. I'm going to share it on wherever. I'm going to make a poster of it and share it on Instagram, Pinterest, whatever. Something inspirational. How many classes do you take with professors that you admire? How many of you are athletes and you have coaches, trainers that are teaching you every day? You're reading books, you're watching articles and videos, and you're on YouTube. Every day, I promise you, you guys are learning something. Take that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or actually make it a habit. For me, Twitter is a digital diary. I'm an engineer, so I take plenty of notes. But what do I do with these notes? I review the notes, and if something is interesting in here, it goes on Twitter. So build that discipline of being a sponge. When something inspires you and lifts you up, make a note of it and then share it. And do that consistently for a year. I promise you, companies are going to be banging on your door for you to come and interview with them, because every company is looking for smart, empathetic people that can tell meaningful stories. I'm telling you, meaningful stories. It's the greatest thing. And so, you kind of jokingly mentioned Nick at the beginning. It sounds like I heard he's on Twitter, and you had no idea that it literally changed my life. And it started with Chatter, by the way. And we just bought a company, and it's not official yet, but we bought a company called Slack. So what we're doing on Chatter will be on Slack as well. And Slack is the #1 collaboration technology in the world. So if you know Chatter, you know Slack, you know Twitter, you've positioned yourself to work for any company in the world, and you've put yourself ahead of probably most candidates coming right out of school. Because unfortunately, I speak at a lot of universities, and I can tell you it's very rare students have a strong digital footprint. Very rare. But the ones who do are absolutely going to have a fast path to getting hired at companies, in my opinion. Sorry, that was a long answer to your question. I'll make the next other answer shorter.
Thank you. No, it did answer it, definitely. It looks like we have a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
Spencer asks, are you active on Trailhead, and do you tweet your badges?
Okay, so I'm not as active as I should be on Trailhead. And it's a great point. I don't have really a logical answer why I'm not. I should be promoting my learnings on Trailhead with the audience. See, one of the things you find rare on my Twitter feed is I rarely talk about Salesforce or products, because I don't want people to think that I'm on Twitter because I'm trying to sell them Salesforce products or Salesforce solutions. I think it's the greatest, most impactful company in the world. I think we should be proud that 1 million+ people applied to work at our company. In fact, CIO magazine listed the 10 most on-demand jobs in the world, and 2 of the 10 were Salesforce jobs: Salesforce developer, Salesforce analyst. I have seen students with just a few semesters of graduate years under their belt get a job at Salesforce earning 6-figure salaries. 23 years old earning 6-figure salary at Salesforce. So it's an amazing company. But what I'm not motivated about when I'm active on social is, bragging about our products and our company. I'll talk about our culture. I'll talk about our customers. Now, I should be bragging about Trailhead, because right now there's about 3 million people on Trailhead. We're getting, I think, close to 30 million badges. And frankly, the amount of value we're putting on badges earned on Trailhead, to be honest with you, is as significant as what school you went to where you got your diploma. So because it's competency-based, and it's a signal to us that you could immediately make an impact because you're learning skills that businesses need right now. In some courses, you can't immediately validate that what you just learned in that class is going to be applicable at work. But with Trailhead, it's almost guaranteed what you're learning is needed right now in business. And we've got about 160,000 customers around the globe that want people that know and have Trailhead badges. So again, long answer to your question, no, I don't brag about my badges or company products, but I do it because, I want people to know that I am sharing because I want to educate, and I want to inspire, and I want to ignite action. I don't want you to buy Salesforce. I don't want you, I don't, as much as I'd love for you to be part of the ecosystem and part of the family, that's not what motivates me. I just want you to be successful, whether it's Salesforce or not. And I think that's probably the guiding principle that dictates what I share.
Awesome, thank you. So next we have Matthew. He asked, when you refer to people's digital exhaust and footprint, what type of content would positively differentiate candidates from one another?
Oh, that's great. Let me tell you, this is not even a student thing. I have seen executives at big companies wait too long at a line at an airport, let's say, and they say, oh, this airline stinks, hashtag failed, or they wait too long at a concierge at a hotel. Oh, the checkout here is horrible. And I know that the company that they're dunking on is one of their major customers. So they're like making fun or being really rude to a brand that's actually their customer. So this is why I say to hiring managers, hire for attitude, train for aptitude. In this hyper-connected knowledge-sharing economy, your emotional intelligence is more important than your pure IQ. So to me, it's a combination of IQ, EQ, and LQ. I call it the love quotient. How much do you love the work you do? How much do you love the people you serve? So what differentiates you in terms of a positive exhaust is that when you're not dunking on people, like don't be rude, don't be mean, don't, be a good person, but don't waste time trying to prove it. I see so many people getting into like fights on social. Somebody like, oh, I don't like the Celtics, or I don't like I don't like the Kentucky Blue or whatever, and they go back and forth, and I'm like, never feed the trolls. Be a good person, but do not waste your energy trying to prove it. So a good digital exhaust is when there's positivity, when you're not dunking on people, when you're able to demonstrate you can write well, when you're helpful, when somebody says, how do I join the Salesforce Club at University of Kentucky? You chat, here's a link. By the way, I'm a member, I've been a member for 2 years. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. When was the last time you volunteered online to teach someone something that you know that's helped your life, help you get to a better place? When was the last time somebody came to you and asked for advice? When people don't come to you for advice, that's a sign that you need to work on your exhaust. You need to work on your influence. It's not even influence. I don't like the word influence. You need to work on showing people that you care and you're being helpful. The fact that you guys are here on a Sunday night tells me all of you have the characteristics to crush it on social media. By the way, it's not the size of your network that helps you build and create great content. I have 549,000 followers. I had 5 followers, I have 50 followers, 5,000 followers. This entire journey, I've been working really hard to make sure what I share is uplifting, accurate, and inspiring. And so it's not that I was more motivated now, that's 500,000 people versus when I started. This is why you really need discipline. Again, any of you who are athletes, you understand building that generosity muscle, building that muscle to fight against sense of entitlement, thinking it's a wash your hand, you're going to be successful. Oh, I'm going to create my Twitter account and I'm going to share a couple of TED Talks and I'm going to get 100 followers by tomorrow. That ain't going to happen. Maybe I'll retweet you and you'll get 100 followers. If Rex Chapman or myself or some of these folks, it's amazing. It's amazing when someone who has a great footprint shares your. So here's a call to action. You want to build a positive, write a blog about why being a member of Salesforce community or any community as a whole makes you a better student and positions you to a better career. If it's written well enough, not only I'll share it, I might even have you guest author a post with me on ZDNet, which means hundreds of thousands of people will see it. So it's got to be a really good article. It's got to be fact-based, educational. It's got to put a little bit of soul into it. You can't just, bang it out no matter how good of an honors writer you are. But you put something to paper that's inspiring and accurate and reflects your learning, I'm definitely willing to amplify it. And again, don't mean to humble brag, but if I retweet something you write, you're going to see a lot of people seeing it around the globe. So, and I'm happy to do that because networking is about giving. All right, next question.
All right, next we got Alvaro asked, how do you think international students can sell themselves to use their international status as a plus in interviews and online platforms when comparing with American students applying for the same jobs?
What a great question. Again, you spoke to my heart as an immigrant refugee. And I think about the last 12, 13 months, man, I mean, just this crisis of there's a deficit of trust that we've all experienced. We've had the worst health scare of our lifetime, more than a scare. I said at the beginning, all of us are struggling, but about 600,000 of us are no longer here. So many are struggling much more than we could ever imagine. That led to the most unbelievable economic crisis. with unemployment rates unlike ever before, and jobs that have disappeared and will not come back. So the economic crisis will stay with us for some time. Climate crisis with floods and fires on both ends of the coasts, ravaging communities, racial inequality crisis, which impacts immigrants, impacts anybody that doesn't look like the majority. And violence, there's a court case going on where we all saw, a human being killed on video. So, unlike tension, unlike recent memory, and then because there was an election year, there's this mass dissemination of misinformation at the highest level in leadership. So combine all of these crises and there's a deficit of trust. So when you represent another country or another part of the world, first of all, know that good companies value equality and diversity. In fact, at Salesforce, equality is our number 4 core value. And I say number 4 doesn't mean like it's 4th place, but trust, customer success, innovation, and equality are our 4 core values. So those are, if it's a table with 4 legs, equality is one of the legs. So as an immigrant, if you're applying to Salesforce, know because equality is our core value, you actually may be at an advantage, not a disadvantage, because we welcome diversity, because we know diversity is a strength. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Now, I have technical reasons I can speak to you because we're in an algorithmic economy. More and more businesses are using automation and algorithm. A lot of those algorithms are powered by machine learning, deep learning. These are artificial intelligence technologies. And so they're based on algorithms. Algorithms are just your beliefs codified. So you believe something and then you create it into code. Well, if there's 10 white old men writing code, then it's beliefs of 10 white old men writing algorithms and automation. So companies realize the more powerful automation and AI becomes part of their business plan, the more they need multicultural, gender, age, geographic diversity, because the strength of their algorithms and their business is a function of diversity. So smart companies like Salesforce are hiring purposefully individuals from different countries, different parts of the world, because they understand that their culture, their mindset, their beliefs woven in the fabric of the company can help us really reach as many of the people that we want to reach, because not everyone we reach is of the same age, gender, geography, ethnicity, and so on and so forth. So the reason why Salesforce is consistently named by Glassdoor, Fast Company, Fortune, Harvard Business is the best place to work is because we purposefully hire people that don't look like us, that are not from where we are, and have a difference of opinion that we think strengthen our company. So can I say that about every company? No, but you have a choice where you work. Don't compromise. If the culture of a company doesn't match your core values and guiding principles, don't go there. If they're not giving you a competitive salary, don't go there. There's plenty of choices you have. And if you build, again, your digital footprint, those choices like multiply like you wouldn't believe. It took me 20 years to figure this out. Again, I didn't know anything until my 40s, so I apologize. And I started by saying I was a straight A student and all that. So again, you get older, you just learn things. And I don't mean to say, by the way, I love reverse mentoring. I have individuals much younger than me that are mentoring me. Like get on Clubhouse, learn crypto. Hey, when are you going to mint your coin and get on NFTs? Like I'm learning from people that are much younger, much smarter. So my advice is also be part of a reverse mentoring program. So in any event, view it as an advantage, hold your head up high. Don't think it's going to limit you from working for great companies, and recognize that, being different is going to be a strength as long as you have high EQ, IQ, and LQ.
All right, next question from Charles. He said, you mentioned the value of having a high rate of learning. Any advice to learn better?
Do. Remember I told you how writing an article for me, literally, it's like sitting in a dentist chair and it's got like a drill going into my mouth. It's painful. What beats that pain is the feedback I get from readers after I publish an article, where they say, wow, this really made me think about this differently. Wow, I'm going to invest in this technology. Wow, I'm going to hire using X, Y, and Z. So the good feedback I get outweighs the pain that I go through. But I'm telling you, I've written 150 articles in the last 12 months. So go Google Vala Afshar ZDNet, and you're going to see 3 or 4 articles a week. Last week, I think I wrote 4 articles. And it's not just ZDNet. I write for a bunch of publications, but that's where I predominantly write because it's mostly technology executives that sit there. So it's the doing part. It's the doing part. And that's how you increase your rate of learning. I don't really have any other advice other than roll up your sleeve and get in the game. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do. I'm sure I had plenty of advice given to me when I was in my 20s and 30s that I ignored. My ability to really reflect on advice from people that had demonstrated success, that's a muscle I had to develop over time. And you got to be self-motivated. You really, don't wait for your teacher, your counselor, your parent, your coach to push you. If you're lucky, you'll have somebody in your career that pushes you. That's why I think a sponsor is so important and a mentor. But you're on your own and you're competing against great talent. So you really just have to do. So, a call to action. If you're not on a social network, get on a social network. If you're not on a podcast, get on a podcast and eventually maybe start your own podcast. If you don't, get on YouTube. Guest write for publications. Go to your editor for University of Kentucky and say, I'd like to guest write about the culture of the campus or whatever. I want to write about Salesforce community and what it's meant to me as a student in my future career. Get out there, volunteer more. The first to follow is starting to lead. So you don't have to be the leader, and you don't need to be a title. You don't need to have a title to lead. You don't have to be like, I'm Nick, the head of the Salesforce Club. Therefore, unless I'm lead, I can't do X, Y, and Z. Do it. If you're waiting for a title to lead, you're not ready to lead. So don't wait for these things. Just do. And over time, you find, just like anything else. Again, if you're an athlete, you know what I'm saying. You got to put in the dues. It's champions are built in practice. So when I say get on an active social network, write, podcast, speak, you got to do. When was the last time maybe you could put it on the chat. When was the last time you publicly spoke in front of a crowd? I mean, I know virtual has been difficult because for the last year, this is really what it means to be in front of a crowd. A week from now, I'm presenting at MetLife, one of our customers. There's 1,000 people in the audience. They're all business executives. I'm nervous. I know the night before I'm going to have butterfly in my stomach. I'm not going to sleep well at all the night before. They're giving me an hour. These guys, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. And so I have to educate the most successful executives at one of the largest companies in the world. By the way, I'm going to use slides. I'm not going to wing it because I'm not good at winging it. I'm nervous. So I'm not saying it's easy to do. You're going to feel pain. You're not going to lose sleep. You're going to have maybe a crappy diet because you're nervous. But over time, you get better. So that's how you improve your rate of learning, doing.
Awesome. That was some great advice. Does anyone else here have any other questions before we wrap it up? Either in the chat or just unmute and throw it out there.
Yeah, you can unmute and jump on a video. I'm happy to see your face and hear your voice.
I personally would like to thank Catherine for bringing you to our club tonight. I just told her I have a ton of notes that I'm going to bring back to the club. I've really appreciated you being with us this evening. Thank you so much, both of you. My pleasure. I look forward to co-authoring an article with you. No. I'm sorry. I don't mean to assign tasks. No, I'm half joking because
I started a list of all of these powerful quotes, Vala, as you were talking, and I was getting, I think, carpal tunnel from typing so fast because there's so much to take in. So a lot.
Isn't it awesome to have a kind colleague who compliments you? This is so cool. Catherine, you and I got to do more stuff. You just boosted my ego big time. So I appreciate it.
But in all honesty, thank you, Vala. This is super inspirational and powerful. And Christine, thank you for allowing us to be a part of the club.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Next time I'll have slides.
Thank you so much. Nick, do you have any final words?
Yes, so I did put a link for if you are interested in joining the club. I know we have some people that were just here for the guest speaker. So if you're not in the club or interested in joining, look in the chat and apply at that link that I put in there. Also, so our next meeting is going to be next Sunday. Stay tuned on Chatter for some more details regarding who's going to be guest speaking and other activities. But don't forget to put your creative video in Chatter and also your badge goal for the remainder of the semester. But that is all I have. Thank you again, Val and Catherine, for attending with us tonight. And we'll see you all next week.
Nick, I want to see you on Twitter. I
Hey,
want
if
to
I
see
start
you on
tweeting
Twitter.
random stuff at you, don't feel obligated to retweet me or anything. But
No. You're a great moderator. You're articulate. You're smart. Obviously, the community loves you. Get on Twitter and let me see the good work that you're doing. I look forward to it. Thanks.
thank you
Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
Thank
Vala, I should tell you,
Cheers.
a year ago, Nick, well, they were just starting the club a year ago. And when we were talking about leadership, I actually pointed to Nick. I said, you're going to be the leader. And he took it on his shoulders and he's completely grown this last
Nick.
year. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Long way.
It's a privilege to meet you. I look forward to learning from you, Nick, and the rest of you guys. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You as well. Bye.